Radio check, radio check. We are live, one and all, for another episode here on the Sitrep podcast. Today I am joined by my friend in Chicago, the Abbott to my Costello, the Laurel to my Hardy. Notice I'm giving myself the fat dumpy guy, so I want that on the record. Marty in Chicago, how you doing?
Yeah, I am well, thank you very much, sir.
Awesome, cool.
I think that's the best intros yet so far.
Hey, we're always striving to improve, onwards and upwards here on the Sitrep podcast. And today's episode is a true worldwide, global, spectacular media event because we have a guest all the way from the land down under, a man, of course, who is part of the global elite, the precious handful of people who own a W versus Oriskany when it comes to Panzer Leader. My friend Dylan. Mr. Dylan, how you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing really good. It's a bit cold here. I'm on the road, so I'm in a different place. It's colder than I'm used to, but doing well.
Cool. You're making us all jealous because America is like in God's frying pan right now. Half the country's on fire. The other half is in riots. Everyone's air conditioning is breaking. It's a miserable time here in America. So,
or where I'm at, check all of the above.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Don't be surprised if Martin and I show up there in a little boat, like paddling our way over there. We'll be really tired. We'll have these huge arms because we just paddled our way clear across the Atlantic or the Pacific. Yes, I know my geography. So anyway, and of course all my stuff is falling over because it's live TV, folks. All right, so in all seriousness, people who watch us here on the Sitrep podcast are going to recognize Dylan. He's been on a bunch of our streams before, actually. Never actually on the podcast show, but a great number of times, Valor and Victory. Actually, HK Ops once. He was the very first guy to playtest HK Ops live on stream. And now my camera's kind of pointing the wrong way. There we go. Lots of Panzer Leader, like I mentioned before, Valor and Victory. So, yeah, he's been on the stream a bunch of times. He runs a great historical wargaming channel called Another Historian Wargamer. Link is in the description below, so check it out. What I find kind of cool, actually a couple things about Another Historian Wargamer, the channel, is number one, he not only does actually I shouldn't talk too much about your channel. Actually, you talk about your channel, but just a couple things that I like about it specifically is it kind of makes it unique or at least unusual. Is he doesn't just do wargaming. He does like some historical movie reviews. He stepped in front of the bullet that was the Patriot, so I didn't have to review the Patriot. Thanks very much for that. I'll always owe you for that one. But he also does like these musical deep dives where he takes like music songs, modern music, old music, and he actually like goes into the military history behind that, when it applies. So that's pretty cool. And of course, he gave Dark Star a glowing review. So thanks very much. Well, not really glowing review, but he gave it a review. Thanks very much for that. But yeah, Dylan, very glad to have you on the channel. Thanks very much. And is there anything else you wanted to say about your channel, to plug your channel before we go into our actual content?
Yeah, do it.
No.
Oh, no, talk yourself up, brother. Come on.
Going to look at I got the new Horus Heresy starter box. I'll be doing a review of the core rules for that. And I'm always happy to review rule sets. If people let me know what they are, I'm always happy to take a look.
Yeah, I think you're in the midst of a series of War of the Ring and Altar of Freedom. Was that the 6mm Confederate brigades you were working on? Was that for Altar of Freedom?
Yeah, those are for Altar of Freedom. Yeah, we've got about 30 brigades aside for that. It's a fun little game. So
any more Horus Heresy stuff coming up? I need more space snake cocaine in my YouTube feed.
Count and Prospero are coming up. So
awesome.
That's maybe next month sometime. Yeah.
So that kind of dovetails right into the first kind of part of our content. Usually is one thing that we often do is we talk about like what we've been doing lately in the hobby. So Martin, how about you go ahead and get us started on what's been going on your hobby desk recently?
So for the last month or so, I've been working on. Let's see. I've got my squad of Rangers is really more like a platoon of Rangers now. Turns out I've got like 25 of them.
Oh.
All right. So they are the Ultra Combat Modern miniatures, and I had forgotten that we had painted like half of them for the game that we did like a year ago. Well, I found those, after I started painting the other half, a different color scheme.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I repainted all those. So I'm almost done. I mean, I don't know if you can see that little feller there.
The focus is
So
a little. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Once the focus pops in,
yeah,
it looks pretty. Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
like his boots.
that's my my take on multicam going on there.
You're a
It's
brave
skosh
man.
green, but yeah, the 47 steps it takes to do that's been quite enjoyable. So right now, I'm just the multicam is done itself. Now it's just picking out the details. Black on the mic booms and helmets, and got to do their sunglasses, that type of stuff. But everything else is done on those dudes. Same deal for the dog team that I got from
Oh,
not
like a
Footsore
literal
anymore.
dog team.
Special
Okay.
Artisan Service Miniatures.
Right.
Or Special Service Artisan Tim over at the old Footsore North America. So I got the SAS dog team, and they're in the same stage. So they've been painted to that same level, as well as the dog has been painted. And then my Russian guys from Ultra Combat Modern have one base coat on them. That's it. I have not started applying the camouflage pattern or anything yet. I figured I'd get these guys done, get them knocked out, get them off my desk, and then I work on my Ruskies here. So that's what I've worked on past couple of weeks. And next week, or next podcast, we'll just talk about the Russians and whatever else new fell on my desk.
Awesome. Cool. I know what you mean when it comes to you're going back like a year or 2 years later to sort of add more to an existing force, and you want to get the color scheme like just the same way that first part
Yep.
was. I won't belabor the point now because we'll get to it when I come to what I've been doing in hobby lately. But yeah, I've been confronted with the same issue, with some particularly unforgiving shades of paint. But we'll come to that in just a second. So far we've got Walkabout Games in the chat. Welcome, Walkabout Games. Thanks very much for coming out.
Hey, there he is, Mr. Long.
Yep. Okay, Dylan, how about you? What's going on your hobby table lately?
About 5 years ago, I painted up 100 troops for the Sudan and about 30 or 40 Brits for no reason. I had no reason to paint them up, and then I spent the last about a month ago, I spent a week rebasing them. So I was taking miniatures off a 5-cent piece, which is sort of 20 mil round, and putting them on 25 mil round MDF. And then when I spoke to a friend, he said, "Why didn't you just glue the 5-cent piece on top of the MDF?"
I've seen that where the guy has rebased his miniature like several times, and it looks like every guy is standing on a little staircase of squares and then circles and then another square, and it looks like he's standing on top of a giant flattened cheeseburger or a stack of pizza boxes or something.
Yeah. Sometimes you can see 3 or 4 layers there. They're for my early Sudanese campaign, 1885.
Right.
And then I also finished a platoon for, a bit more than a platoon for early war, World War II. I did some pulp miniatures Highlanders with the kilts.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
I found 3 pictures of people wearing kilts, so I can do a platoon of them in bolt actions.
We're gonna do the ladies from hell there, and
there we go.
Did you
let me check out the live stream. Make sure we get nobody. No one from like House Cameron, nobody from House Douglas in the room or whatever.
They painted up as Camerons with the tartan.
Yeah. That and if you're painting tartan, you are a braver soul than I am, sir. That's no joke. Multicam's easy compared to that because it's camouflage.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like a blobby sloppy mess, and if it comes out looking like a blobby sloppy mess, hey, you did it great.
Yes.
Tartan, that's a lot of straight lines. And,
yes.
On a kilt that is not straight. That's got waves and curves in it.
I don't know how good they turned out, but there's yellow and red, and that's all I needed on those miniatures.
You're gonna get at least one rivet counter. It's like that's not the actual, because every clan has its own pattern. And
I looked it up, and I'm like, this is close, but it's not fully correct. Yeah.
So what was the reason that you're going back to your late Victorian Sudanese war stuff? Are you actually gonna, because you said at first you painted it for no reason other than just the fun of painting it, I'm assuming. But was there like a game that you got planned or a project of some kind?
I had a game with a friend of mine, Sharp Practice. Two Fat Lardies put out in their Christmas magazine this year an expansion to play the Sudanese War with Sharp Practice. So we had a game of that. It was good fun. It's pretty balanced actually when you consider it's a game meant for black powder muskets, and you're taking it into the end of the black powder era with borderline repeating rifles with your single shot Martini Henrys there.
See, there's
But it came out really good.
There's a lot of breech loading stuff in that period.
Yep. Yeah. So it was good fun. We had the Gatling gun, which was good, and it came down to basically a single point of morale. So it was super close for like 20 minutes. It was who got what card, and good fun.
Those are the best games, the ones that come down like right to the very end. Totally. All right, so what have I been up to lately? Well, people have seen the end of the Midway stream, the Midway game that I played with Rasmus. We were talking about it in the previous episode, but only part 1 had been done yet, and then part 2 was, since the last episode. So that was pretty cool. Technically, the Americans won, but that's a huge air quotes around technical. The game goes down until one side or the other runs out of all their carriers, which technically I did do that. And then Rasmus was like, "Hey, can we just play one more turn? I know the game's over. Let's just play one more turn to see how this invasion goes." And then in that turn, if anyone's seen the end of that video, a random Japanese submarine appears on a score of 11 to 12 on 2d6, so that's 8.3%. Then I roll a 1 and a 2, or 1 or a 2 on my d6 for my destroyer checks. To basically, he walks right through my destroyer screen. So 8.3 divided by 3, chance of 1 or a 2 on d6 is a 3. We're down to like 2.5% now, or 2.7% or whatever. Then he rolls like 10 on his torpedo check, enough to sink USS Yorktown like in one go. Oh. So that was like 1 in 5. So 8% divided by 3 divided by 5, 1/15 of 8%. We're down to less than 1%. That like half of 1% that, I-168 just appears out of nowhere and puts like 3 torpedoes into Yorktown's port side. That technically makes it, or that doesn't technically, because technically the game's already over. That sort of makes it a draw, but then again, he had troops on Midway, and those troops on Midway were doing pretty well. That's just a flaw in the game design, and I can say that because I designed the game. Midway shouldn't be that easy to invade, because he was like taking over the whole place in like 4 hours. And you talk to anyone who's written on that subject seriously, and it's like, even with all those battleships doing, shore bombardment, even if it could have happened, it wouldn't have happened in like 4 to 8 hours. So technically an American win, but I think we're calling it more of a draw because, we played one more turn just for fun, and then like lightning bolts out of the sky. I can't even accuse Rasmus of cheating, because not only did he have to roll amazingly well, I had to roll amazingly bad, and all those good and bad rolls had to happen in the right order at the right time, and of course, so in any event,
storm.
Yeah, in any event, we did the 80th anniversary of Midway like we said we would. We didn't do it in 1 to 1800 miniature, because that map would have to be, really big.
Size of my neighborhood, yeah.
Size of like northern Illinois. It's the total map we had was 2.3 million square kilometers, which of course you don't do. People who play naval war games know you don't do it that way. You have like your big map like we did, and then when an airstrike happens, you set that up in miniature.
Right.
Like a temporary table. So you wind up having like 7 or 8 tables going, not all at once, but in tandem. The good news is the tables are pretty easy. You get a big blue sheet, slap that sumbitch on there, set up your little planes and your little ships, and, start chucking dice. Which is a good thing, because you're going to be setting up 7 or 8 tables before the project is complete. So we did that. We also put up both parts of our Valor and Victory modern expansion game of Mujahideen versus Soviet motor rifles, I should say. That game, both sides of that are up. Part 2, I think, went up on Wednesday, so check that out if you're interested. We're trying to do things in Valor and Victory and Panzer Leader, our normal stable of games. We're also talking about in the future virtual. If we can figure it out, Marty, this is something I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. Virtual contact. I'm sorry, battle space. Virtual battle
Uh-huh.
space. By that's Robert Salters. I think it's
Yeah, Tabletop Game
right.
Designs, Robert Salter.
Okay.
It is on Steam or oh, now I'm gonna lie.
Okay.
It's on one of the tabletop simulators
Oh, okay.
already, and I'm drawing a blank on which one it is off the top of my head. But yeah, we could definitely do some of that and run a co-op game.
Yeah, we want to do something along that, and I'm also talking with Piotr about virtual Team Yankee. So we've done virtual war games before. Pretty much every time we play Sitrep Skirmish, every time we play Air War C-21, Naval Command, we've done Contact Front, British in Afghanistan. We've done virtual miniature games 100 times before. It's easier said than we've done virtual battle group. We did Pacific War. We did Marines landing on Tarawa. It's easier than it sounds. You just have to make a lot of pieces ahead of time. So I'm talking with Piotr about what armies he's interested in exploring. We also have to make sure that these are armies that we have the cards for, and the rules for, and things like that.
Right. Well, Battle Space would be super easy. I mean, there's not much to it. It's a simple game. There's not that many cards. It's a low model count. If you were, if you're playing the rules as designed, it's four good guys and then a nominal force of bad dudes. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had more than 25 on the table at the same time, and that was a really, really bad day for me.
We've got the pieces already made.
Yeah.
We use the pieces we originally created for Sitrep Skirmish, and that library is always being expanded. Yep. I'm not even going to go through how many pieces we have. We have literally already made in PNG and ready to slap on a virtual table and play. We have at least 40 or 50, probably more like 100, from Libyan militia all the way up to Lovecraftian horrors when we had that Halloween special game. So
yeah, and like the Contact Front guys, that yep. Stuff would probably you could pull all that in as well.
Okay, we just have to figure out how to get the cards to work. I tend to avoid games that have cards in it because how do you draw a card virtually? But when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, so you don't do a whole lot of card drawing. So I think that this will be realistic. There's one card that you draw, and that's for the AI's actions. That's the only card you draw. Other than that, you chuck a couple dice and move.
Okay, so I mean, you've got the cards obviously. So
yep.
if we get set up a virtual game one of these times, you could just draw the cards on your end, and just read off what the card was, or show it on the webcam, or we could figure out a way.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, so I talked to Chris Wimmer.
Right.
Not last weekend, earlier this week. He has all of the studio parts over at his house now. So when we can both get time to set it up, we're going to set that studio back up. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, we'll be able to do that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we definitely, for our audience, we definitely wanted to make sure that we put something up today because neither of us are available. Actually, none of us are available next weekend coming up because we're going to be out of town for American Independence Day. By the way, we have some special plans for that here on the Sitrep podcast, so stay tuned for that. And if we miss today, we're definitely missing next week. We would go for like another month without a podcast episode. So that's the reason.
Right.
I realize it's kind of at a weird time. We normally do much more in the morning here on U.S. time. Also, we wanted to have Dylan on the show. And, I can't get Dylan up out of bed at like 2 in the morning.
Well, it is morning. It's just Dylan's morning.
Well, if we had it at 9 a.m. our time, 9 a.m. our time is... Actually, that might have worked. That was like 11 p.m. his time or something like that. But I don't want to...
He said there'd be no math.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
With that card thing, I don't know if you're going to use Tabletop Simulator or something, but in Tabletop Simulator, you can actually import a deck of cards and put your own custom PNGs on the cards. So if it's and put your own artwork and everything on them through the back end. So there might be a workaround there.
How do you do like PNGs for like your actual playing pieces?
Yeah, you can do that as well. It's been maybe a year or two since I've used Tabletop Simulator, but it's definitely doable.
Oh, cool.
In there, I might have a look at that later, actually. Yeah, but you can definitely import custom cards. Yeah.
Yeah, because we kind of got off on a tangent here, but we can only play Valorant Victory and Panzer Leader so many times. I mean, I'm sure our audience is starting to get a little. We got to start doing some other stuff. We got to get clicked into some games that are more. I don't want to say more modern, but more recent that are actually out there on the market, and people are playing them like a lot. I mean, people play a lot of Valorant Victory, of course, because it's free. I mean, free. Gamers can be cheap sometimes.
What?
Yeah, it's also on Slitherine, Steam. Steam. It's out there as well. That's only for World War II though. None of the modern stuff is on there. But anyway, speaking of modern stuff, the other thing that I've been working on and finished up lately are that platoon plus company commander, so 5 tanks and all, of my M1 Abrams. Which for people who watch this cam a little too closely, I've probably put a few more gray hairs in my beard because holy crap, I forgot how much I hated painting desert vehicles. This is what I was talking about with Dylan a second ago. It first went on there as okay, well, primed on black, then we did the base coloring with it with the airbrush or whatever. Used the same paint as the old airbrush, or at least I thought I had. Then you put in like a little bit of mud on the bottom, and then you're looking at it, and khaki or desert sand, that is a very unforgiving color because it can go too pink to too green like that, or too yellow, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't look, even if it doesn't, leaving aside the fact that it doesn't look like the right color, because let's face it, out in the field, especially in desert sun, paint changes color very quickly. So almost who cares like whether or not it's accurate or not? I'm just trying to get it all to look alike. And a lot of filter washing to try and get that tint back the way I wanted it. A lot of dry brushing before I even started the actual detail painting. And then, holy hell, the pin washing. Because let me tell you something, you can't just dip it. You can't just like wash the whole thing and just hope it looks okay. You can get away with that with green. You can get away with that with camouflage. You don't get away with that stuff in desert colors. I've got Panzer Army Africa, Panzer Corps Africa, whatever you want to call it, Deutsches Afrika Corps, Panzer Group Africa. We've got pretty much the British, the Commonwealth. Technically, that's not always 8th Army, 13th Corps, Western Desert Force, whatever period you're talking about. Iraqis, Americans in 1991. Let me tell you something. If you don't get that pin washing exactly right, it's going to look like your tank just overran an oil rig and just oil splashed all over your tank and whatever. Now it's driving really fast and some of the oil is falling off and some of it isn't. Putting together a desert vehicle force, you are going to master pin washing or pin washing. Go ahead.
That could be a good look if you're going for the end of the first Gulf War.
You're driving through those oil fires, yeah. But pin washing, you will master pin washing. Or pin washing will master you. And I'm not talking about it in a fun way.
Mm-hmm.
There is no fuzz on those handcuffs. Let me tell you that it's it's a bad session if you don't do the pin washing exactly right. Fortunately, it's coming out okay. So the M1s are done, and to wrap up real fast, I'm now started the accompanying Bradleys. I went for a 1991 sort of a configuration, so no M2A2 with the extra armor panels on the side and on the glacis. So also the turret face, I think, have like those little bolted on. Makes it look like a poor man's KV1 kind of a thing.
Yeah. A little bit, yeah. I mean, I see where you're going with it.
Well, some of those later marks, like the KV1E, has like that bolted on armor where it's like these gigantic rivets. In real life, they're like that big. Yeah.
It's like it's the size of your fist.
So cool. So that pretty much wraps up what I've been doing in hobby lately. So did anyone else have anything, or do we want to jump right into the news?
I'm ready for news unless Dylan's got some more hobby stuff he wants to share.
No, only thing I'll mention is I got the Iron Warriors doing up an armored force, but otherwise, Golden Button winning. Not to brag.
Oh,
Ooh.
Jump into the
nice.
news.
Nice. So is that the first? No, that's not your first. Is it your first golden button, or do you have got golden buttons before?
I got one before for game design though. This is the first one for actually painting. But,
What golden button did you get for game design?
for the Age of Plasma, for converting Saga into a 40k.
What?
So taking the Saga rules and making them 40k. I've got battle boards up for, I think, all the factions on the project on Beastable. So
I
you
probably
do
skipped it
sci-fi
because it
Saga.
said 40k. You gotta start putting your names on the project so I know that's to look at it even though it's 40k. Because otherwise I'll just scroll over the 40k stuff. Sorry. No, I didn't even know that. That's pretty cool. Did anything ever come of that Lufthansa flight terrorist game you were making that one time?
Yeah, I know people have played it because I've
Oh,
had
okay.
people email me and they're like, "Oh, it was a fun game," but I haven't played it myself ever. But I would have to play
You
because you got
designed the
that
game,
nice
but never.
board.
How did you play
I
test
was gonna
it?
say, how did
Also, I played tested it, but never like had an actual sit down proper game of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Marty. The whole
Yeah.
map was basically the inside of a Lufthansa airliner, and it was recreating one of those. I can't remember exactly which one. One of the Israeli special
The
forces.
hijacking somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, taking the plane back in the day. That
Yeah.
1970s. Yeah, period.
Is it the Tel Aviv hijacking or
There were a bunch
one
of
of
them.
those?
There were so many.
Yeah.
Like the whole Black September period in the early 70s. The PFLP, like even before the PLO was the PLO, it was still like the PLFP or whatever. It's
Yeah.
It was like every week you turned the TV on, they taken another plane somewhere. There's a lot to pick from, sadly.
Yeah, well, for a skirmish game, a plane like that is more than big enough to be aboard.
Yeah. Okay, so if we're wrapping up on our hobby section, let's go ahead and get to the news. You want to lead us off there, Marty?
Sure. So down and dirty, the one item that we have listed is all I'm bringing to the table. So if you got something besides that you want to jump in, or Dylan, if you got some news from down under that you want to share, you get it queued up. We'll be ready in a minute. But we wanted to make mention of War Stories from Firelock Games. It's a World War II RPG. It's currently up for pre-order and on sale for $16 USD. That is it's a PDF book.
Right. So the physical book is on pre-order?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The estimated release for the PDF, not the hard copy, the PDF is up here and it's coming up here in September. I didn't see anything that showed when they thought the hard copy books were going to be ready, but I'm sure that's based on the number of pre-orders they get as well. But again, role-playing game set in World War II. You can be parachuting into Normandy during Overlord, or you can be a tank crew grinding your way through France, as it says. So you can kind of pick whatever area trips your trigger there. You could even be an underground resistance fighter. That could be kind of cool, for an RPG. Yeah, I dig that. It's a campaign game, so it'll let you tell your tale any way you want. You can keep going and fleshing it out as you go through your campaign. But most, like most RPGs, as it says, it allows you to create moments of valor and courage, ultimately weaving your personal tales into the fabric of history from D-Day and beyond. And that will be their war story. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting game if you are into both role-playing and World War II. You got a bunch of options there. Seems like this one might be a lot of fun for those that are into it. So cool. Check it out. Firelock Games. You can click the link to it right on their front page there.
Yeah, so these are the guys that do Blood and Plunder. These are the guys that do Blood and Valor.
Valor.
Yeah, I think they've just recently also
Oak and
come
Iron.
out with. Thank you, Oak and Iron. I think they've also just come out with a 1914 to 18 Anzac miniature set, or they're in the process of coming out with it for Blood and Valor. That's basically their World War I skirmish game, which I tried at Historicon 2019. It's got one of the most, I find, interesting and innovative initiative systems I think I've ever seen. I know I've said this before, but that's the one thing that I remember about the game from 3 years ago. It's got a kick-ass initiative system that is, I don't think I've ever seen before. So yeah, definitely a lot of innovative ideas that come out of that studio. I've talked to them before. I've met them at Historicon.
Yeah.
They're great guys. So
And
yeah,
Mike
definitely.
Tunez is down in your neck of the woods too.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. Technically, like maybe an hour. Well, it depends on traffic because I have to drive through Miami to get to him. So you can't just add up the miles, divide by 60, and that's all it takes to get there. It depends
Right.
on the day. Depends on the time of day.
Sure.
How many RPGs you can fit into your car. It's Miami's a rough drive, especially with gas prices being the way they are right now. But it's all yeah. So role playing in because we mostly talk about war games here on this channel. We've done obviously RPGs before as well. What do you guys think about role playing, like in a military setting? Have you ever tried it, or is it something that you guys would be into? I mean, I know Dylan's tried it at least once, but at the same time, I know that he's not super into role playing either. At least that's what I've heard on his channel a couple times. So is our stream frozen? No, that's just me being stupid. Sorry about that. Our stream is fine. I had it paused. I was like, the stream's frozen. Sorry. So back to the question. What do you guys think about role playing in like a military setting?
What do you think, Dylan?
I've only ever done one role-playing campaign, which was a Star Wars campaign ages ago, where it went downhill fast, where we ended up rigging a school with explosives to kidnap someone's children. It was
Oh
it got dark.
I hope you guys were like,
Rebels.
I don't know.
We
I'm
went
not.
crazy
I'm going to
rebels.
withhold my
Yeah.
criticism of the Obi-Wan Can Blow Me show.
Yes.
As far as whether or not the good guys are really the good guys or the bad guys are really the bad guys.
Hmm.
But
yeah, it's interesting in a military context because you sort of it's I wouldn't really know how it would work with a squad where you've got, or a section or something where you've got a corporal who's in charge of things, and then you've
yeah,
got someone role playing a leadership figure, and other guys, unless the DM wants to role play that figure or something, sort of. But other than that, it sounds like fun.
I was gonna say the kind of the settings and scenarios sound fun, but I think you hit the nail on the head for me, Dylan. Is that it's not the military, so you don't necessarily have that hard structure that comes with being in the military, and it can go anywhere. Which in fantasy role playing, that's what you want. That's the point of it.
right.
But on the military side of things, especially if you start mixing up like military veterans and folks that haven't been in, then do you create this conflict where, like, bro, that would never happen, you can't do that, that's not how we work, or that type of stuff. So could be tough to pull off. I mean, looking at the war stories here from Firelock, it seems like a really interesting game. The description appeals to me. I just don't know if in execution if it would work that way for me in particular, being a veteran. I promise you, I will get wrapped up with the Army in my head and be like, that's not how this goes. You can't do that.
Yeah. So I've done this a bunch of times in the past. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. Sometimes as a player, sometimes usually as a game master. It is possible. It is possible,
Yeah.
but to your guys' points, talking about hitting the nail on the head, there are definite things you have to watch out for. Um, we've never really had a problem with veterans and non-veterans in the group, although I was running the game, and I think no, I wasn't even the only veteran in the group. It's whether or not your group is aware of the potential issues. Like like I think you said one of the options was a tank crew. Okay, well there's a tank commander in World War II they usually had 5-man tank crews. The Sherman had a 5-man tank crew, so you need 5 people, unless you have an NPC somewhere. Okay, well, there's a rank structure. The gunner almost always outranks the loader outranks the driver, and the radio operator up front, and the commander outranks everybody. So you got to make sure that the guy or the person who is running the tank commander character knows that he's in charge, but at the same time, look, chill out a little.
You,
You know, don't. We're not really in the
yeah,
army here.
because so full disclosure, I've not played a military RPG before. But just looking at, like, we'll use War Stories for instance here.
Right.
They said that you could also be like a resistance fighter.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so now that character's gonna be out of the box. They're not constrained by the military structure. So that could be the way to address that, or in a more modern context, a PMC or a mercenary type character.
Reminds me of HK Ops a little bit. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
There it
I
is.
mean, because while you still have structure, and those people all almost completely bring a military background with them, except for some key specialists in areas. They're not in the military. It's not that same structure. They don't have to operate under those rules. There's no Geneva Convention for them.
Yeah, there's a few other options. I mean, this doesn't really apply to War Stories, but like when I was running HK Ops and I put it out to my group, and I was like, okay, what do you guys want to do? There are three options here. We could be hardcore military, like, regular Army, Marine Corps, whatever. In which case, we have to pick a nation, we have to pick a branch,
Yep.
and everyone's got to be from that branch. Everyone's got to be from that country. You can have like family or whatever. Like you could be, some sort of immigrant, or you came from another country, or your family comes from another country. There's a little bit of wiggle room there, but let's face it. If you're going to be, playing Marines in Fallujah, you want to play a Marine fire team in Fallujah, you're going to be U.S. Marines. There's
Right.
not going to be any females in the group, and yeah, what the staff sergeant says goes. Period.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, there's the whole PMC option, which is what we kind of went with. And then to bring in other successful, for like 40 years successful, or almost 40 years successful military-esque RPGs, Twilight 2000. Originally from GDW, and now I think from Free League Games.
Free League.
Free League, I think it's the
Free
name of the
League
company.
Publishing.
Yeah, I bought it up in Sweden, which is post-apocalypse. So that whole, which was another option I offered to my players. They went with the PMC option. That post-apocalypse solves some of that problems because the mushroom clouds have blown away all that. There's no uniform code of military. You're not going to get Article 15. Right. The only 15 you're worried about is the reading on your Geiger counter. As you're walking through the ruins. So there's ways around it. Now the good news is, because I'm not trying to scare anybody off from trying military role playing. The good news with military role playing is it comes with a warning bell. When you're putting your group together and you want to try a military role-playing system, you're going to know if it's going to work for your group or not before you really get too deep into it. That's when you're actually creating the characters and creating the party. Because when you say, look, we're going to play, Ox and Bucks at Pegasus Bridge. This guy's in charge, period. Okay? I'm going to take him aside as the game master and say, look, you're Major Howard or whatever. Don't be an ass. Don't abuse your power because you're going to have a lot of power. Okay, but if other people in the group don't like, player A or whatever who is going to be running the group, then they're just going to raise their hand and opt out or whatever. You have to be British. You have to be Paris. You all went to the same training. Here it's the required list of skills. And again, it depends on what kind of. I'm not familiar, obviously, yet with War Stories yet. I don't know how their skill allocation system works. A lot of games let you shop from a list with like a budget of points or something. There's going to be a lot of restrictions on there, or your game's not going to be realistic because you guys all went to the same regimental training school. You guys all have X amount of points in jump, X amount of points in submachine gun, grenade, rifle, light machine gun, so on and so forth. And you're going to wind up with not many points left over for cricket or making biscuits or whatever the hell else it is British people do when they're not shooting people. So, yeah, I find that before you actually start playing whether or not your group is really into this or is ready for this or if it's really what they're looking for. So, yes, it is possible is the good news. The bad news is it does have a lot of pitfalls. The other good news, it does come with a series of warning bells. So you'll know before you dump a week or 2 weeks or a month of work into, your scenario preparations and all your, as a storyteller especially, or the game master, whatever you want to call it, you'll know ahead of time whether or not your group is, ready for this or not.
Right.
I suppose the other route you could go down would be the two fat laddies route, sort of like sharp practice isn't a game, it's a book, like you're playing a novel. And you could sort of say, well, instead of role-playing World War II, we're going to sort of do a combat style thing, the old TV show, or like the Rats of Tobruk or something. Was that what it was called? I can't remember what it was called. That old, the like 1960s, 1970s World War II TV shows.
Yeah,
So
Rat Patrol.
Rat Patrol.
Rat Patrol.
Oh my God, that movie was absurd, but it was great.
Yeah, you could do more like a if you had a group that was more sort of low key, just kind of mucking around, you could probably do something like that. But no, I think you're right with that other stuff, Jim. You sort of have to have the right group of people to play a role-playing game like that.
One of the stories we did was in World War II was Kelly's Heroes, where our guys were just kind of like a four-man fire team, like wandering through the woods, and we ran across Oddball, and we just happened to be sitting there like drinking wine with his tanks when Kelly comes up to him and says, do you want to come rob a bank with us? And we're like background. So what it kind of worked into is when Kelly and Oddball are having that discussion in the movie, we're like some of the guys like walking around in the background or whatever, and we sort of get hooked into that into that story. So it's like World War II camp. There's a startling amount of history in Kelly's Heroes, but mostly in the background, like where the armies were, what they were doing, mid-September, early September 1944. The towns, the units, the actual shoulder flashes are an actual unit that was really there. But once you get to stuff like General Colt, played by the immortal Carol O'Connor. I'm sorry, the funniest guy in that movie. No, it's not Oddball. Come at me, bro. Prove me wrong. It's Carol O'Connor. Obviously, the history kind of goes sideways on that. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Like World War II or any kind of I don't want to call them sharps, because I've never read the novels, but I did just recently plow through all the TV episodes. I forgot just how cheesy those.
They're cheesy.
There's one episode where the damsel, I think it's played by young Elizabeth Hurley, she literally stands up out of the coach and like faints into Sharp's arms.
Yes.
Sharp's like there, like right outside the. Like literally every episode, dude. This guy's worse than James Bond. This is why Sean Bean dies in every movie. Okay, because he used up all his luck in the Sharps practice.
The only realistic one is where his wife takes all of his money and just leaves him there, and he finds another woman by the end of the episode.
The end of the episode, he's neck deep someplace else. I mean, God bless him, but people say Sean Bean dies in every movie. No, he doesn't. He made it through 14 Sharps episodes movies, and he got laid in every single one. And on top of that, my man made it through 2 Silent Hill movies. Not too many people can say that. Not too many people can say they technically survived through 2 Silent Hill movies.
That's right. Not one, but 2.
2. I mean, Silent Hill movies. That's one of those IPs where you start off already dead. You're basically a ghost. It depends on how you interpret it. So, yeah. Whenever people say that, Sean Bean dies in every movie, I'm like, hold on. I take slight exception to that. Look at your data. Look at your numbers.
Right.
Although,
check.
If it's not a Sharps movie or a Silent Hill movie, he's pretty much a walking corpse. But that's all right. He used the walls like in Sharps practice. Awesome. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the news. We didn't have too much going on in news today. There were a few other things that we were talking about, but I don't actually have enough information on them to really talk about them meaningfully. Cold War Commander, I think that's the name of the game. I literally don't even know the name of the game. It's on our Discord, so check it out on our Discord. Again, link in the description. And we've also been looking at, again, those new Anzac figures for Blood and Valor. So there is other stuff in the news. We just, I just didn't have enough information on them to really get into it.
Just quickly, Wargames Atlantic is doing a new plastic set. It's kind of said, it's sci-fi, but it's not too distant. It's called Oorah. So maybe that might be a clue. It's semi-distant future U.S. Marines.
Another glorious day in the Corps.
Yeah.
So that's something to look out for. There's not much. They've just put some rendered sculpts up. I'll post them in the Discord later. But so if you want to do marine tunning bugs in the near future or something. Wargames Atlantic should be out in probably about 6 months or so.
The only thing I hated about that movie is it's such a glorious movie. Obviously, we're talking about Aliens, 1986. Those are some sloppy ass Marines, man. One guy has like a big Padawan ponytail hanging off his head. They're wearing do-rags in front of the platoon leader. I'm surprised you guys made it through boot camp, let alone a bug nest. I mean,
Marines of the future, sir.
That's horrifying.
Look at where we're at now compared to where we were. I don't know, in World War II. You know, just saying, it's the natural progression.
I have read a couple times that James Cameron was kind of going on a Vietnam vibe. It's probably why they're still wearing piss pots. I mean, underneath the cameras and all the other stuff like that, they're not even wearing like cape. They're wearing like, there's a lot of old-fashioned gear in there. They have the graffiti on their body armor and stuff like. Dude, what Marine Corps do you guys belong to? Because I don't know. I get in Vietnam, everyone was drawn on their helmets and stuff. Okay, whatever. He was going for a theme, but hey, what are you gonna do?
Right.
Other than that, the movie's awesome, obviously. Shows that the bugs are freakishly intelligent because First Sergeant, Top is like the second guy taken out. The medic goes first. Then there's like 2 or 3 other people, and then like one of the first people taken out is the First Sergeant.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's early. Yeah, he's like the third dude, isn't he?
So I know it's the medic, and then there might be one other.
I think. Yeah.
My
girlfriend. There's somebody else.
Yeah.
I think.
He's definitely one of the first ones. And then
I don't know, but he goes. Yeah, he goes early.
The squad, the platoon pretty much falls apart because I don't know what it was. The thing in the 80s, every second lieutenant was just the dumbest. I mean, okay, second lieutenant, they're all not the best. I mean,
he's so he's the least experienced guy in the platoon. Let's be real.
Well, he is. He's
probably the most highly educated, but least experienced.
Most second lieutenants are like, what, 23, 24 years old? They're right out of a 4-year school.
Yeah, 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
24.
And then you've got, well, in a platoon, you usually don't have a first sergeant. In a platoon, you have, well, we would call it a gunny or a staff sergeant. I think you guys call it like sergeant first class.
We would call it our platoon sergeant. That would be his duty position. But yeah, he'd be a sergeant first class in E7.
An E7, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be an E7, you have to be in at least like 15 years. At least when I was in.
Not anymore.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you, it goes a lot faster these days. I feel like there's a lot of E7s that are a lot closer, that get promoted to E7, a lot closer to 10 years than 15 these days. I mean,
that's pretty cool.
It took me 14 years, so and I was in. You and I were in about the same time.
Yeah.
We went in about the same time.
My time was mostly pre 9/11. It was all pre 9/11. So you were lucky if you stayed in because you were giving people golden. Never mind golden handshakes. You're giving people golden parachutes. Here's $3,000. You can get the hell out.
Yeah, all the early separation bonuses in the 90s. Thank you, President Clinton.
Yeah, that was when I left. I left the month of Gothic Serpent, October of '93. Was they were like, they're basically letting you go if you're not E5 by a certain time, which I had like 2 years left, but I wasn't gonna make E5 in those 2 years because the promotions in my MOS were like ridiculously slow. To be honest, I had just picked up E4 like a year before that, and the odds of me making E5 by the end of my normal contract were like not hot. So they were like, and if you're not like in like a priority MOS. Again, 3043, supply admin and logistics. They had plenty of, 3051 are the box kickers. So I guess, I don't know, office pogues, coffee slurpers or whatever.
Hey, you say coffee slurper with respect, sir.
I do. We were the E4 Mafia. We ran that Marine Corps. Let me tell you something. Yeah. But if you actually wanted to get something done. But hey, no regrets. But yeah, I would be assuming after 9/11 with Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom and everything else that came after that. I mean, Syria. It seems like we're everywhere. There'd be a lot more people with combat in their SRV, and promotions would come a little bit sooner, especially in those MOSs.
Yeah. Well, and as the Army now, instead of it contracted in the 90s under Clinton, and then the early aughts up through 2010 especially, trying to do that large buildup. We had a surge in Iraq in 07 and 08. We had a surge in Afghanistan in 11 and 12. I know because I got to participate in both of those.
We had a surge period. We started two wars practically simultaneously. I mean, who does
right.
that?
So we ended up expanding our forces, and we went from drawing down to, okay, we need to get bigger, especially in particular branches. So the way you do that is you start bringing more dudes at the bottom, and you promote more from within. You make more spots. Well, if there's more E7 slots, there's a bunch of E6s that are about to get promoted.
And you federalize the ever-living crap out of the National Guard, and you start giving everybody, instead of one tour like we'd see in Vietnam, 2 mandatory tours, 3 mandatory. Like some guys had to go back how many times? It's not good long term.
Well, between 2002 and I got back from my last one, like Christmas of 12. I did 4 tours, 2 in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan.
Jesus.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing that sort of happens in the Napoleonic Wars towards the end, where guys who were promoted to field the officers, who were obviously the regiments were expanding and that sort of thing, and so guys would get brevet promotions that would get confirmed, and there were guys who were captains at Waterloo in 1815 who were still captains 20 years later, because they can't afford the promotion because they don't have any money, and they're barely surviving in the army, so they're just sort of stuck there, and yeah, it's like that. The army expands, bunch of guys go in, army contracts, nowhere for them to go, really. So yeah.
You see that big time in World War II. 1939, when Japan bombed us, we were the 39th army in the world. We were just number 38 was Romania. Maybe that was 1939. We were behind Romania as far as the size of our army goes, and in like 3 years we were at 12 million. So just in the army. So
yeah.
okay,
British
I mean, it's the biggest U.S. Army's ever been, obviously. Of course, back then the U.S. Army Air Force, the U.S. Army was basically 2 branches in those days, so that slightly inflates those numbers, but still. But yeah, you get, especially in the officer ranks, you get guys who were captains or majors back at Fort Benning. They send them over to England to prepare for the invasion, and they give them a regiment. There you go, colonel. You're colonel on one side of the water, you're a captain or a first lieutenant on the other side. You have generals who are actually majors, brigadiers, major generals who were just straight out majors or lieutenant colonels on the other side of the water. That's why you see in some of the shows like Band of Brothers where guys get sent back. They're like, we're going to send you back to run a training base, or we're going to send you back to, train the next, and they almost break down in tears. Yeah, because they just dropped like 20 years of rank because they're going to be on the wrong side of the Atlantic.
Yep.
The army just gets so big and so fast, with obviously the huge drafts and volunteers that came after, Pearl Harbor, that before you know it, you need like 20,000 new, field grade officers. Okay, so take like the best half of all of your company grade officers and promote the shit out of them. Okay, so now where are you getting all these new lieutenants and captains from?
And that wasn't just with our active duty forces either. I mean that particularly pulled from the National Guard. There were so many units in World War II that people don't realize. That's a National Guard unit. That's not,
absolutely
regular,
totally.
That's not regular army.
Yeah, once you get to like 1944, pretty much D-Day forward, you kind of have two especially of infantry divisions. You have 2, I don't want to say classes, but 2 types of infantry divisions. You have what used to be a regular infantry division, still is an infantry division. They give it, lots of extra troops, training, weapons, equipment. And then they call them second line, which they really shouldn't. But in terms of equipment and support, they were kind of worse second line. And these were some of the best divisions ever. I always give a huge shout out to 30th Infantry. I was at Mortain on the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Mortain, August 7th, 2014. Those foxholes are still there from 120th Infantry Division. That like their radio CP. It's like one of those World War I trenches nowadays, where it's just kind of like half filled in with leaves and whatever. But those holes are still there. Where one regiment of Tennessee National Guard, we just needed more infantry divisions. They grabbed like two from Kentucky, one from North Carolina, one from Kentucky. I think it was one from Tennessee. They just bolted them together. They gave them a general, a little bit of a command staff, and said, "Congratulations, you're now an actual U.S. Army infantry division." And they weren't given the best stuff. They often were given like support roles. They were kind of holding the flanks while Patton made his big breakthrough.
Right.
Okay. I won't get on my soapbox there. But yeah, Hitler sees what's happening there, and he says, okay, these Americans are breaking south, part of Operation Cobra. I'm going to hit them in the flank. I'm going to cut them off. Well, who's standing there in the flank? Who's watching your flank as you go off and get your names in the newspapers? Third Army. That's 30th Infantry. And those guys stood against SS Leibstad or 2nd SS Das Reich, 2nd Panzer Wehrmacht, 116th Panzerlehr, like all the best stuff they had left. It was like a little miniature Battle of the Bulge. Yeah, they stood tall. 30th was there, 29th was there, the same guys that landed at Omaha Beach. 35th was there, and a lot of these guys were not first line infantry divisions. They were, like you were saying, like 2 or 3 National Guard regiments
Chucked together,
called up, given new rifles. Here's your brand new Saltines. And good luck.
At least they got new rifles. Australian World War II, we had all the AIF, the Australian Imperial Force, was in North Africa, and we just had the militia, who legally can't send them overseas, but luckily New Guinea is a part of Australia, so they could be sent there. And they didn't even get new rifles. They had the old World War One SMLEs and all sorts of junk. And my great grandfather was in 31st, 51st, which they ended up designating as a regular army unit anyway. So they did the same thing where they just took it and then, oh, you're in the real army now, and we can send you overseas. Well, the real army, the professional.
Yeah, the actual federalized national army.
Yeah. Congratulations, you're regular army. Get on the boat.
Yeah. By the way, we conscripted a bunch of you because we can't conscript you to the regular army, so we conscript you to the militia, and then off you go.
So that's a nice little outflanking of the law there.
I was gonna say that's a nice maneuver there. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna fill this militia unit to 120% via conscription, and then I'm gonna send them off to training. And hey, you guys did so good. We're gonna make you real army. Make your real army. Put you on the boat.
I'm not drafting the unit. I'm not drafting the individuals in the unit. I'm just gonna reassign this unit to federalized service. Again,
well done.
The Civil War, the same thing. I mean,
the big green weenie.
We'll get you one way or the other. Uncle Sam will have his day. So cool. So speaking of all this history stuff, we kind of meant to talk about this last time, but we didn't have time to it. I guess we'll talk about it briefly now. What do you guys think about June? June, the month of June. A lot of times we do historical gaming. Obviously, we do historical gaming here on the Sitrep podcast, but we try to plug it into an anniversary of some kind. And every time June comes around, I feel like it's Christmas. Yeah, I feel like it's Black Friday, Black June. I'm just gonna start calling it, because it seems like 60% of military history takes place in the month of June. Cold Harbor, 1864, the American Civil War, the glorious 1st of June. I know you're into that one, Dylan. Saipan was June 1944. Midway, we just did Midway. Yep. The first week of June, everyone always does D-Day. Come on, guys. It wasn't the only thing. Obviously, Operation Overlord was huge. 6 June 1944, one of the most decisive naval battles in the history of naval warfare. Also took place the first couple days of June, June 4th, really, 1942. Bunker Hill, 1775, where the British kind of realized, and the Americans as well, those boys don't quit. This might be a bit of an undertaking here. We thought this was going to be over in like 2 days, but no, it's actually going to be a thing. Belleau Wood. My fellow Marine veterans would literally drag me out in the street and beat me to death with bricks if I didn't mention Belleau Wood. June 1918. Messine, if I'm spelling that right, or if I'm saying that right, 1917. That's the the world's worst opening die roll in the history of wargaming, where the British set off, I think, 19 mines, killed 10,000 German soldiers in like the blink of an eye. It was basically a tactical nuke in 1917. Friggin' Waterloo, like one of the most famous battles ever. Barbarossa, the largest military operation No, it wasn't Overlord, everybody. No, it wasn't even Okinawa. The largest military operation ever launched in the history of combat arms, Operation Overlord, June 22nd, 1941. The Brusilov Offensive, 7 days, Second Ramadi, more recently.
Yep.
You might have been around for that one. Yeah, so there's a lot. And of course, tomorrow, here on the same podcast channel, we are doing, we're a little late, we're like 10 days late, but we're doing one of the last engagements of the Falklands Islands, which the ground part started in May, like some of the initial landings. Goose Green, I think, was like May 28th or something like that. The majority of the real ground battles all took place, like I think 11 to 13 June 1982. So, yeah, it's just a crazy thing that we seem to run into every year, where it's like, okay, what are we doing for the 6 Day War? I just totally went past that one. June 1967. It literally, the list is almost endless. It's kind of crazy. And it kind of makes sense in like Black Powder era, going back a little bit, because you had to only fight in the summer. You spent all winter getting ready, and then spring it was all muddy, and then when summer would start in May,
and
the
the
armies
farmers
would
had
start
to plant
marching.
their crops.
That's going back even further, yeah, to citizen armies like Rome and Greece. Yeah, you had to, you couldn't mobilize your army in the spring because people were still planting. But once you did get your stuff together, it would take you a month of marching to get to a prospective battlefield. So it didn't start like the second summer started. You don't see a whole lot in May. Well, you see plenty of battles in May, but late April, May, there's some. It's kind of getting started. Usually in June, um, it's really kicking off, and then pretty much everyone uses up all their. This is pre-industrial era. Everyone uses up all their ammunition that they've been building and making for the last year, and then they go home again, and then they go at it again next June. So I don't know.
Head back to winter quarters and refit and reconstitute and get ready to do it again next spring.
So anything to add to that, Dylan, or?
One of the final battles of the Peninsular War and Napoleonic Wars was the Battle of Vittoria, which was basically like the French artillery running out of the country with all the loot, and the Allied army catches up to them, routs the army, and then spends the next couple of days looting this like 10 years worth of plunder wagon train that the Napoleon's brother, the king, is getting rid of. So that's.
They were doing Kelly cereals before it was cool, is what you're telling me. Yeah.
Yes.
Way ahead of their time.
The enemies are fleeing the occupied country with all the stuff they stole. Let's go steal it from them. We're stealing from the French, not from the Spanish, so it's okay.
It's an interesting battle because the cavalry basically get first dibs because they can get there first. And you have units like breaking out of the line just to get at this wagon train. But yeah, that's another June one.
You've got not Gaugamela. Gaugamela was one of Alexander's biggest victories. Another one of his big victories is Isis. And that's the one where at the end of Isis, he completely loses control of his army. And even though they just crushed a Persian army like 6 times their size, he still has some of his men very brutally punished. I don't know if anybody was executed, but he went off on his men because they just went completely apeshit. To the point where he lost control of the army. If the Persians weren't already running by the grace of God, he may have been wiped out there because, they fled, or some of them fled. Alexander was actually very lucky that the rest of them also were fleeing. But when some of them started to flee, they left behind all this stuff, and his army just completely went wild on it. Some of it was food.
Apologies, guys. I've got to run. Sorry, guys. I've just got pulled out.
Cool. No worries. Thanks very much for coming out, Dylan, and we super appreciate you coming out to our podcast.
Dylan, awesome. It was great having you on board, brother.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys later. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, to be perfectly frank, we're kind of just about done anyway. We're kind of coming to the end.
I was gonna say it's not horrible timing because that's.
Yeah, we're pretty much done. We just got to the bottom of the running order for the first time since I've been running this.
So I was gonna say the whole thing. We actually hit everything.
I think it's literally a first, at least since I've been writing the running orders. I think it's the first time we've ever done that. We've also been up for a little over an hour. Cool. So yeah, we want to keep this one a little bit short. All right. So any last thoughts or Anything else from you, Marty, or are we ready to close this one out?
Well, like I said, I hope to report some hobby progress and hopefully start setting up the studio before we have our next podcast. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Get everybody's schedule and whatnot together. But I think that'd be awesome. So we can start making a little content over at Chris's house.
That'd be cool. Or again, even if that doesn't work, I guess that's going to take a little bit of while to set up. Let's seriously start talking about when would be good for you to either run it live or like pre-record it or whatever. We can run some stuff like Battle Space virtually, especially if you already got the cards. I'm pretty sure I've already got I've got enough miniatures. I've got enough virtual miniatures built to where that won't be a problem.
Well, and so that entire game is PDF, so I can also just send you the cards.
Okay, cool.
So whatever works, however we want to do that. I mean, I have hard copies all printed out and laminated and whatnot already. So.
Okay. Yeah, we could try to print those out, and I'm trying to think if because it's technically either a solitaire or a co-op game.
Yeah, it's designed to be a solo game, but you can kind of play it in a co-op mode as well. Really, what you do is you add another turn to each phase, so it's two good guys and then a bad guy turn within each phase, if you will. So.
All right.
Yeah. Or you the other thing that you can do is there's 4 individuals on each fire team. You could literally make each one of those guys its own person, or you could split those 2 dudes between someone else, so you're not adding a whole nother team. You've just got somebody else rolling for those 2 characters.
So 2 guys, yeah. Or actually, you can have 4 guys, 4 players playing your 4 people, and now you're basically playing a role-playing game, like we were just talking about, in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, kinda. And they're all named characters. So all of the good guys, I should say, are all named characters with their sheets. So you can keep track of who's who, and then it's generic group of bad guys. 1d6 big comes out from the nearest doorway. It's stuff like that for the AI cards. Sniper from across the board.
Cool. So. Yeah, we could definitely start to investigate that because we want to open up our portfolio a little bit with different kind of games that we run, especially on Sundays. But awesome. All right, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. We are, I think, rounds complete. So thank you, Mike, very much for everyone who came out. People who watch this later on either Facebook or on YouTube, we definitely appreciate it. Marty, thanks very much for being accommodating with the schedule today. Definitely appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it as well. I too had scheduling conflicts this morning, so this worked out well. I'm just glad that it worked out that we were able to have Dylan on board for a while.
Yeah, because otherwise, like I said, if we missed today, we'd have been out. We'd have been dark for like a month.
Can't do that.
Speaking of which, if I don't talk to you before then, have a great Independence Day holiday. Sorry to everybody over there in the UK and Canada. We're all great friends now, but hey, liberty or death. Just don't talk to us next weekend because we're not going to have too many nice things to say about the British.
Because we're going to be American hard.
There you go, which is already a bad thing. But in all seriousness, take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be in touch very soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye.